Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do Crab World Lesson 3. We're doing Chapter 3. Okay, and as usual, red text means stop, and you need to take notes. Green text means it's time for you to actually do something. Day 1, getting started. The first thing you need to do is we're building off of Chapter 2, and so I need you to do that. So what I want you to do is go into your folder. You can find it here. See if we can find it. Hold on 1 second. Alright, so what I want you to do is I want you to go into your folder with your name on it. Okay, I want you to go into your programming folder, and you have Chapter 2. I want you to copy Chapter 2. So I want you to copy it, and then I want you to paste it, and I want you to rename it Chapter 3. So that way you don't ruin your Chapter 2 stuff, and then we can start working on your Chapter 3 stuff. Okay, so we're going to do Chapter 3. And let's get started. Let's take a look at what Chapter 2 does. Here's the old one. Here's the one from Chapter 2. Let's take a look and see what it does. And it's slowly opening, and here it is. Alright, here's our crab world from Chapter 2, and we're going to add a crab, and we're going to run it, and you can see it goes straight, and it hits the wall, and it turns. Is that acting like a real animal acts? No, not really. A real animal has some more random behavior than that. It doesn't just do the same thing all the time. Alright, and that's one of the things that we're going to work on in this. So, make sure you copy your thing over and open up your Greenfoot, and then we're going to continue on. Alright, so this is what we talked about. The crab always walks straight. We need to add random behavior. And luckily, Greenfoot has a get random number method that's going to help us to do just that. Okay, take this note. When a method we wish to call is not in our own class and is not inherited, we need to specify the class or object that has the method before the method name, followed by a dot. This is called the dot notation. Take that note. Okay, so we can see right here that we're going to use the getRandomNumber method. Okay, and because it's not in the crab world, let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so the getRandomNumber, it's not found in crab, it's not found in animal, and it's not found in actor, and so we have to call it on it in a special way, and that's the dot notation. It's actually found in Greenfoot. Okay, so the Greenfoot class. So we have to say Greenfoot dot get random number, and then it says, oh, okay, I can find that method. It's found in Greenfoot. So this is used when calling a method defined in another class. Okay, and the class name dot method name parameter. So you say class name Greenfoot dot method name get random number, and then the parameters, and I'm not showing the parameters yet. Okay, so this is the dot notation. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this. So a class method equals a static method. So methods may belong to objects or classes. So, for example, you could, if you look inside here, inside of crab, there's not really much in here yet. Oh, no, let's not look in that yet. Let's look inside animal. No, I take that back. Let's look in crab. So in crab, you can make, here's the act method. So the act method belongs to the crab, right? Okay, but you have some methods belong to an actual class, so such as the Greenfoot class. Okay, so a method belongs to an object or a class. All right, when methods belong to a class, like the getRandomNumber, we call it like this: class name dot method name parameters. All right, if a method methods that belong to a class have a signature like this. It's static. All right, and that's going to come into play. Some of you guys have had trouble with this already. Static, int, getRandomNumber, int, limit. All right, so this tells us that we need to write the name of the class itself before the dot. When methods belong to an object, we call it like this: object name dot method name parameters. So that would be something like crab dot method name. Okay, and write this note. Okay, so if you ever have a problem with something saying, hey, this is static, it needs not to be static, you're probably not doing the thing like we talked about earlier, where we're calling on it with the Greenfoot name. All right, Here's the get random number method. Greenfoot.get random number 20. Okay, we're going to use something like this. So when you do this, the parameter, that's the 20, specifies the limit of the number, and will return a random number between 0 and the limit. Okay, so in this case, it will never get to 20, but it'll get right up to 20. So it's going to return a 0, could possibly turn a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 19. So this is going to return a random number between 0 and 19. All right, so here's the question. Answer this down. Write this down. What possible numbers will the following return? Greenfoot.get random number 100. What are the possibilities? And I'll quiz you on that in class. All right. Operators. Operators are special symbols that represent computations like addition and multiplication. The values the operator uses are called the operands. All right, so check this out. The assignment operator is equal. So if you say the asteroid speed equals 100, well, you're assigning a number to something. So you're saying, hey, this equals that. A comparison operator says, you say, this is a statement. This equals this. This is a question. Does this equal that? Okay, so that's a comparison. You can say, hey, is this first number... Sorry. It's the most annoying thing ever. Okay, so this one is saying, hey, is the first number less than or equal to the next number? Is the first number greater than or equal to? So on and so forth. And then there's logical operators. Hey, is this true and that true? Or something like, is this true or is that true? Or something like, hey, is the first thing true but not the second thing true? So these are different operators that we're using. The reason we're talking about operators is, well, we're going to use some. Okay, so also, we're going to talk about this later too, but you need to know the order of operations since we're starting using some formulas here. So here's the rules of precedence. You know that when you do a formula, everything inside the parentheses or brackets is first, then the exponents and roots, then multiplication and division, and then addition and subtraction. Write that down. That's just handy to know. So all the stuff in red, 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 and red. You got a lot of notes here. Pause and do that. Okay, here's some common operators that you're going to see. Plus, minus. You're going to use these operators when you do formulas. Okay, so here's some things you're going to see, and we'll use them later. Okay, and this is not red, so you don't have to answer. But here's just some common operators that we're going to use. All right, let's say that we want to program our crab so that there is a 10% chance that he will turn after each step. So basically, let's see if I can find one that is doing this. Let's see if I can find. Let me go back here. Let me run this thing for you, show you what we're trying to do. Okay, so we want one that goes like this. Okay, so he runs, and then he goes, and every now and then, not every time, but every now and then you can see he's got some little turns in there. Okay, so you can see him turn. He doesn't turn every step, but every so often he'll take a step and he'll turn. Okay, that's what we want to accomplish. And so basically we're going to use something like this. We're going to use an if statement, okay, a conditional statement. So basically, hey, if something is true, every now and then if something is true, then turn. And then after that you'll move. Okay? So what we have to do, your job right now is try to figure out, we need to find an expression for this, if something is true. Okay? Alright, so we can use this using a random number and a less than operator. So here's what we're using, the two things we learned about. We're learning about a random number and we learned about operators. Okay, so the less than operator compares two numbers and returns true if the first is less than the second. So is 2 less than 33? True. It's going to return a true. Is 162 less than 42? No, that's false. Alright, so you tell me, true or false. What are the following return? Does this return true or false? Does this return true or false? Write it down on your papers. Okay, write this down on paper. Write down on paper an expression using the get random number method and the less than operator that, when executed, the crab will turn exactly 10% of the time like I showed you. Okay, and then once you write it on paper, actually try it out on your crab. And then answer this one. If this first one we did 10%, how would we do it 7% of the time? Okay, so yeah, so do this. Answer that, do this, answer that. Okay, so here's what it's going to look like. Here's what it's going to look like. I'll show it to you in here. This is what it looks like. If at world edge, turn 17, that's what we did last time. Okay, but if the Greenfoot.getRandomNumber, so this is going to return a number between 0 and 99, right? And so there's basically 100 things. So you have a number. If this is going to be less than 10, well, how often is 0 to 99 going to be less than 10? Well, 10% of the time. Most of the time, it's not going to be true, and it's not going to turn. But 10% of the time, it's going to be true, and it's going to turn. Alright, is the crab movement random? What is not random about the movement? You saw it, you've experienced it. What's not random? So let's come up with things that we could do. So write down what's not random, and write down some things that you could do to make it more random. Write those things down. Alright, how can you make the crabs turn a small but random amount? So before, so if you look at this, okay, we're going to look at our crab here. If you look at it, it turns the same amount every time. Alright, and that does not seem very natural. It's not random enough. Living things are a little bit more random than that. Come up with an idea for what you can do to make that turn something a little bit different every time. Okay. Alright, try running your scenario with multiple crabs in the world. Alright, so how can you make the crabs turn a small but random amount? Try it. So do that. So you put that into your program. How can you make the crab turn right and left sometimes? So random and sometimes right, sometimes left. Try running your scenario with multiple crabs in the world. Do they all turn at the same time? Why or why not? Okay, so figure that all out, and let's see here. You guys do that, and I'm going to do something myself. Alright, here's what it should look like. So let's add a crab to the new crab to the world. Here's what it should look like. Okay, so notice that looks more like a real crab. It's actually turning. It's not always turning the same amount. It's turning a little bit, sometimes a little bit more other times, and sometimes it turns right and sometimes it's left. Okay, so see if yours is doing something like that. See if you can do it. And ready, break, and pause. Alright, check this out. Let's look inside and let's see how we did it. Okay, so what we did is instead of saying turn 5, we said we put in our get random number method again. And check out what we did. We said, hey, get a random number from 0 to 90. So if the number, let's say it came out with a 0. Well, what's 0 minus 45? 0 minus 45 is -5. It's going to turn left. Well, let's say it came out with 80. Well, 80 minus 45 is a positive number. It's going to turn right. So this is how you get it to turn a random amount. This is how it's going to turn a random amount, and sometimes right and sometimes left. Alright, there's your solution, and here's your quiz. Here's your quiz. Write those down, and write those down.